Okay, Epic 7, here it is, day number 12 of Ancient Inheritance. Saturday, Sunday, done. So this is the video you've been waiting for, at least I think it's the video you've been waiting for. Here is the priest fight video. I will be demoing the 4 teams that are recommended in this screenshot, as well as a special 5th bonus team for people who are running the Mage Warrior combo. You could even be just running pure mages and this team should still work. You'll just need to swap out the one warrior I used. Now, don't at me. I do make a couple of missteps that cost me super high scores, and I'll explain that as I come across them, but it is what it is. These are 5 very solid teams that all of which should get you well over 1 million, if not 2 million points per attack. And as you're looking at the scores, I want you to be reminded that this is actually harder than it will be for most people because my guild has killed the priest for the first time. So now the priest is back in his enraged form. So he's even harder to kill, so technically my score should be better, right? That's what I'm going to keep telling myself. Now, I'm sorry I told everybody you get 1,000 currency from killing the priest last fight, or last video. That was my screw up. You only get 500 currency. I was getting currency and experience confused, so that's a thing. I'm going to go ahead and grab this scroll, even though I've not had good luck with scrolls. I'm going to give it one last shot, and I get class enhancement tokens now that my classes are all maxed out. Okay, well, hey, you know what? At least it wasn't a lose units scroll again. We'll grab this treasure chest up here. That gets me a little bit more currency. I'm pretty close. Now, I've counted out the spaces to the priest over here, and I want to make sure I've got enough provisions to do my 5 fights there and grab as much loot as I can on the way. So I can do 3 normal monster fights and grab that chest, and it'll be fine. Now, Blaze Dingo, if your priests are level 14 or higher, Blaze Dingo can solo these. I don't put it on auto, but you sure as heck can. Watch how Blaze Dingo just cuts through all of this. Okay, legit scary moment here where the priest put the mob put heal block on me. Thank goodness I had my gold shield ready to keep me from dying, and I'm able to get past that heal block, and it was close. I almost took a dirt nap there, so when I said Blaze Dingo can solo this, maybe he can do it with a little bit of luck. The good news is, normal monster fights, if you fail, you only lose 1 provision and you don't lose the unit. So you can jump right back in and use Blaze Dingo again, and you've only wasted 1 provision. But I didn't like that heal block fight. I'm not going to do that one again, so we're going to go down and try this Katie's and see if it's any better. We'll grab the treasure chest on the way. Oh, look at that. I hit level 15. Another nice thing about fighting monsters, tons of experience. Now, my warriors are maxed, my priests are maxed. You know what? I'm going to max out my mages. I think this is the first time I've had 3 classes completely maxed out, so I'm pretty pleased with that, and that will make using the mage team even better versus the priest. But first, let's go down here and kill this Katie's because I've got more provisions than I know what to do with, and I want a little bit more currency to buy the things I want from the shop. Since we've killed the priest for the first time, I told everybody to go out and loot and get whatever they need to clean out the shop. Because killing the priest from here on out, all it gives you is powder, stat mod boxes, and a sense of satisfaction. It's much better to go out and get your loot on and clean out the shop of all the items that you really want, rather than spam killing the priest. So Fire Ravi definitely solos this. It's good to have units that can solo these bosses. You want to look for units that self-heal like Fire Ravi and Blaze Dingo, units that are built on lifesteal like Martial Artist Ken. These are all great units to take into these fights. If you can bang them out without wasting unit, that's great. And remember, failure is an option. If you fail, you still keep the unit and you only lose 1 provision for trying. So don't build a totally stacked team and go in when a single unit will do. Test the waters, see what you're capable of. If you fail, you fail, you lose one provision. Go back in and finish it with a slightly stronger team next time. Look at that. This guy puts heal block up too. Oh well. That's okay. Fire Ravi hit way harder than Blaze Dingo, so this guy died fast. So I like this. I'm going to go ahead and hit it again. So Martial Artist Ken worked good as a solo unit against the Ferris. Maybe he'll work good as a solo unit versus the Cadies. Yeah, Martial Artist Ken slices through this like a hot knife through butter. So he is another great option for a solo clear unit for these normal monster fights. Do pay attention to the element of the normal monster fights. You don't want to take, for example, Fire Ravi into a fight that's loaded with ice units. So do kind of respect the elemental disadvantage aspect of these fights. So we'll do this one more time, and that should be all of the fights that I need. Since this is going to be my last normal fight, I'm just going to load up with units that I don't plan on using against the Priest. I don't need all three of these, but they're 3 units that are not a part of any of my Priest comps, so safe to burn them. And with that much firepower, the Cadies drops in the blink of an eye. Now that's 3 kills on the Cadies. Once you kill it 3 times, poof, the monster's gone. And no one else can attack it. It's not just gone for you, it's gone for everybody. So anybody else wants to go out and farm monsters, they're going to have to walk a little bit further, possibly even use the teleport. But that gives me the currency I need, and I have got exactly 35 provisions left, which is enough to attack the Priest 5 times. It's 7 provisions to attack the Enraged Priest. But before we do that, I'm going to jump in. I cleared out the shop of everything I really cared about. I'll go ahead and drop 600 on these bookmarks. And I'm going to grab the Epic Charm. Now, those gold friendship boxes may be worth 500 to you, and heck, those lesser art charms, or greater art charms I should say, may be worth the 600 to you. So if you want to go out and farm 1200 more provision, or 1200 more currency, go for it. There's more monsters to the right. You can take the teleport, jump off island, and get some more chests. Heck, I might even do it tomorrow, but those items really aren't that important to me. I can live without them. So I'm going to sit here and focus on the Priest and try to help my guild kill it. So this is team number 1 on the Priest killing list. It is, in my opinion, probably the highest scoring team out there. It does require a little bit of forethought into what you're doing and what actions you're taking. But I'll walk you through it step by step so you can use this team to achieve really high scores. And remember, this is against the Enraged Priest. Your score should be even higher versus the standard Priest. Now, though it's not required, having Benimaru's artifact on Camilla is best in slot. If you don't have it on her, give her a artifact that procs debuffs, like Cradle of Life, which I'm putting on Fire Ken because Ken has probably the most attacks of anybody here, and that has the highest chance of proccing a debuff. I put Mediator Queric on Junkyard Dog, more chances to proc a debuff. And if you don't have a second Junkyard Dog, that's fine. Still additional chances. The more debuffs you can proc, the more security you have. If you don't have enough of these debuffing artifacts to go around, then put Ken on a damage artifact like Cradle of Life, or Cradle of Life, like Jacko's Symbol, or this early in the fight, you can legitimately run Portrait of the Savior. So we start the fight off with an S3 from Conqueror Lilius. That puts Vigor on the whole team. The reason you want Vigor is Vigor makes Ken's defense break 100% chance. Now it's early in the fight, so I'm going to use the S2 to put barriers up. I want the barriers up to prevent damage from this attack. I'm okay with the poisons, they won't get through the barriers. Ken uses his S2 because he has Vigor, it's a guaranteed defense break. Now we can start doing real damage. Benimaru's artifact didn't proc, which is trash. I would have S2'd anyway to give the attack buff to Ken. I know he's an HP scaler, but attack still helps. We dual attack for some pretty good damage. We're over 300k. I S1, and unfortunately it was with my lowest damage warrior, but still, we take the damage. Now you put up your S3. This gives a 2-turn immunity, and that makes this next attack not stick. If it's a higher level of Priest and the Priest cuts you, then that that S3 will cleanse. Now we've got the immunity, so none of those debuffs stuck. And those debuffs are nasty. That's your defense, break, and seal debuffs. We'll go ahead and rip the S3 because it's a lot of damage. And I guess we just S1 with Mediator Queric. Benny Mara's artifact procs, but we had attack buff anyway, so we can dual attack. Bam, 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 bam. And here I could S2 for the barriers. The barrier would only go on me and Queric, though, on Conquer Lilius and Queric, and they're not hurt that bad, so I just S1 for more damage. Okay, now we're taking pretty good damage. Not this round, but the next round is the round we need 3 debuffs. So I need to survive, and my only form of survivability are my barriers. And even though I wanted this to strip, I need to use it now. I need to strip the attack buff and put barriers up so that we survive. There's no reason for Lilius to S2, so I'll S1. Again, dual attacking with Hand Guy. That's unfortunate. And Benny Mara's artifact didn't proc. Twice it didn't proc. Well, S1 at least reestablishes the defense break, and now this is the turn. We need 3 debuffs. That won't go away. Those burns and bleeds will go away as soon as he takes the turn. So right now I only have 2 debuffs. The attack down and the defense buff, which will stay. So I need one more 2-turn burn. No, okay, no proc. Do we get it now? There we go. Okay, we got a 2-turn bleed proc, so I've got 3 debuffs. Oh, and we got a burn as well. So I've got more than the 3 debuffs, so we will survive into the next round. I'll use the barrier on Conqueror Lilius for a little more survivability. Now, unfortunately, I'm going to eat that counter a couple of times because Hand Guy didn't cycle. Against the lower level priests, Hand Guy will probably cycle and be able to strip. I guess we soul burn and try to get a defense break. I'm going to eat a counter. Ouch. And, God, I think this might kill Ken. We'll go ahead and rip the S3. Big damage. Okay, and the counter, don't die. Okay, he survived. Now I can use the S2, which will not only strip, but will give me a barrier. And that will keep me from dying from this hit. Defense break on Ken's a little tragic. I will S3 into an S1. That will cycle the seal off of Lilius, though I don't really think seal bothers her. Hopefully this goes with Ken. It does. And I will soul burn Ken because he is most certainly dying the next time around. Soul burn, guaranteed defense break, and one more hit. The pop damage probably kills Ken here. The attack definitely kills Ken. And there you go, 2.1 million, no, make that, yeah, 2.2 million damage versus the enraged Archpriest. So I think you probably get 2.5, 2.6. You should do better with this team. And even with not stripping that counterattack buff, it was a solid run. No Soul Weavers, just 4 Warriors. My favorite team. Now, we'll go a little off script. I wanted to show you this mage team. Now, this is not my team. A friend of mine shared a video of this team, and I thought it was kind of cool. Wanted to try it out. The guy in the video got really, really lucky. He didn't take many, if any, debuffing artifacts, and just got really lucky that a lot of his 50% proc debuffs stuck. Now, for you mage purists, you can run somebody other than Euphine. She's not necessary for this. You could run 4 mages and get a similar damage output. But this team consists of Vivian, who's my source of immunity. And on Vivian, I'm running the Bloody Rose artifact. It's only got a 47% chance to proc, but if it procs, everybody gets healing. Angel of Light Angelica is my stripper and buff blocker. I put her on Spirit's Breath to cycle her skills. Giving the team skill null also really helps with survivability. I put Sira Ren on Lulica. You can try a damage artifact, but Sira Ren just gives you additional chances for debuffs, and that's kind of important going into this fight. And Cradle of Life on Euphine. Again, you could run a damage artifact, but you're throwing a little bit more little bit more RNG into your fight. I am not a caution to the wind kind of guy. I want to make sure we get through to the end, so I put debuffing artifacts on everybody that I could. So, I was hoping Vivian would... I guess it doesn't matter. Vivian didn't go first. So we'll start off with the S3. This will put buff block on the priest, which is nice because the priest can't give himself attack buff later. Of course, 15% exists in PvE for some reason, and we don't get the buff block. I'm just going to use the S2. Yufien's S3 does enhanced damage, but only when the boss has a buff, so I'm hoping the S1 gets a defense break, which it does not. So we're not off to a great start here. If any of those debuffs hit poisons that stuck, Angel of Light Angelica would have stripped them and cleansed them off of us with her S2 proc. We finally got a defense break off of Lulika. Now, the priest is immune to silence, so you can't rely on Angel of Light's S1 for debuffs. And we did get the vampirism debuff off of Bloody Rose, so now everybody can heal. Because an attack buff is up, this will do enhanced damage, almost 200k damage in one hit. Now that it's Lulika's turn, I'm going to use her S2. It'll give everybody barriers, and it'll also apply a defense buff. Makes me a little bit tankier. It'll defense buff really improves the value of barriers. So Angel of Light is good to rip her S3, but I'm going to hold it. I want to make sure that we have the, what do you call it, the buff block ready next round for when the counterattack buff would come up. Okay, so now I need 3 debuffs to make sure that we can progress through. We've only got 1. We've got a defense break, so I need 2 more debuffs. I rip the S3. We get buff block, I hope. We got buff block, so there's 2 debuffs, and the buff block will keep him from getting the counterattack buff. We just need 1 more debuff, nothing from Sierra Ren. The S2 is AoE, so it won't proc the artifact. I'm just going to S1 and really, really hope that I get a debuff off my artifact. Because if I S3... If I S3, I know the priest cuts. If I S1, there's a slim chance Lulika still gets a turn. Oh, I got an attack down. Oof, thank goodness. That's 3 debuffs. So this was tight. Thank goodness I put that debuff artifact on Yufien and not just a damage one. But we get through, you'll notice there's no counterattack buff, and that's because we had the buff block up. Now this is the round where the boss puts seal and defense break on everybody, so it's perfectly timed for Vivian to give everybody immunity, and that makes sure that the priest can't seal or defense break any of our units. It's hard, but we get skill null, so we'll survive another round. Actually, skill null doesn't do anything versus this pop damage. He does have attack buff up, so I can rip the S2 for a strip. Got the strip. Vivian died from the pop damage even through skill null. S3, unfortunately, without the attack buff, the S3 doesn't hit as hard, but I really wanted to remove the attack buff to try to survive the next few hits. Lulika reestablishes a defense break and dies. And we get one last good solid hit from Yufien. So that was, what, 2.2 to 3.5, so that's about a 1.3 million team, again against the Enraged Archpriest. Not bad at all. Okay, there are other mage teams I could demo, but I'm going to stick to the 4 teams that I've been recommending, so here is the next team on the list. This is my Green Lots team. Now this is a little trickier because we don't really have a cleanser on this team. So I will show you how we deal with that later. So we're going to take Alencia for our defense breaks and our strips. We're going to take Helga for attack buffs. And we're going to take Lilibet for her buff block on her S1. Now, much like the last team, I'm not playing around with RNG. I'm putting debuff artifacts on my units. So I put Junkyard Dog on Lilibet. I put Cradle of Life on Alencia since she gets 2 chances to proc it, and I put a Junkyard Dog on Helga. Now, to deal with the fact that we don't have any way to cleanse, I'm running Doctor's Bag on Lots, and I think it's kind of necessary. You can try using Candlestick or Stella Harpa, but it's just not going to work as well as Doctor's Bag. Now, I really mishandled this fight, so I'll explain how here in a minute, but don't at me. I know I screwed up. So nobody's hurt, and there's no reason to heal, but I'll use the S3 to put the regeneration buff on everybody. That way they can heal themselves. We'll have Helga attack and, I guess, effectiveness buff everybody. The effectiveness buff isn't really needed, but the attack buff sure is nice. And I considered a defense buff, but I want to save that for when a strip is necessary. We'll just S1 and try to get an early defense break. Unfortunate, we did not get the defense break, but Cradle of Life procced attack down, which is nice. And you see Cradle of Life also procs on the secondary skill. That's why you want Cradle on her. So this will give us a defense break. And Lilibet's S2, if you apply a bleed, she gets 100% CR push. We did not apply any bleeds because 15% is a thing in PvE. So she only got a 50% CR push, so no extra attack out of her. Here's the big hit. Now that that has happened, we're ready for Doctor's Bag. Now we need to use 2 non-attack skills to get Doctor's Bag to proc and cleanse these debuffs, and Lots is all the way at the back of the line.
You disgusting punks. I'll get rid of you all.
S1, I did not proc buff block. Alencia S1, she is sealed so she doesn't get the follow-up attack. Free dual attacks, we take that. Ouch. Okay, so now Lots can cleanse. Now, he's going to need to do 2 non-attack skills to get Doctor's Bag to proc. So, in this situation, I'm going to S2 myself. And now he can S3, and that will proc Doctor's Bag. Yeah, cleanse the defense breaks, but you know what? We take it. Let's try to stick a buff block. Did not stick the buff block. We'll push Lilibet up again. See if we can stick the buff block this time.
I feel a lot better now.
You can't stop me.
Actually, we got a defense break, but no buff block.
Show your elders some respect.
So that's unfortunate. So I need 3 debuffs, and ideally I want one of them to be buff block, and Lilibet is all the way at the back of the line. So we soul burn to try to get the defense break, and because 15% is a thing in PvE, I get resisted on the defense break, and I got resisted on the proc from Cradle of Life. I've got only one debuff. Okay, so if I S1'd here, there's a chance I could have landed buff block and a burn. And that would have successfully taken me through, but I have to land both. The buff block, 50% chance, and the burn, Cradle Life, 50% chance. I don't think it's going to happen, so I just ripped the S3, knowing that it's not enough and my run is ended. The only reason Lilibet survived is she had skill and all, but the counterattack buff's up. You can see 50% chance for a buff block. And I got the burn, but I didn't get the buff block, you notice. So I would have failed either way. Theoretically. We stuck the bleed, so she gets 100% CR push, but she died from the counterattack. That was not a very good run, but at 4.6 million, up from 3.5 million, that still clocks in at a 1.1 million score run, even though I died halfway through it. So if we'd gotten the buff block to stick, if we'd gotten our 3 debuffs, I think that's easily a 2 to 2.5 million team, especially on round 1 Priest. So here is a next team. We're going to use the Kawazu brothers. So we're going to take Inferno Kawazu and Fire Kawazu. Both of them are fantastic in this fight. This is probably one of the more stable, easy teams. It's not as high scoring as some of the other teams, but unless you really screw things up, it's almost a guaranteed full clear. We're going to take Sinful Angelica for her dual attacks and her ability to cleanse, also her attack buffs, and we'll take Acades just to keep everybody alive and for soul generation and cleansing. My recommended artifacts are Unfading Memories or Rod of Amaryllis on Acades to make sure you have constant non-stop healing. I like Prophetic Candlestick on Sinful Angelica. It's a chance to cycle her skills. And then, of course, we stick with the debuff artifacts on Kawazu and Inferno Kawazu. I like Cradle on Inferno Kawazu because he does proc extra turns if you burn his S1, more chances to land a higher percent rate debuff. So, no reason to hold it. We'll start the fight out with Sinful Angelica's S3. We'll give attack buff to everybody. Now, throughout the fight, you're going to want to save Inferno Kawazu's S3. It actually detonates the burns and removes them, and we aren't going to want that later on. So we'll go ahead and use his S3 at the start, just for the souls and the extra damage.
For the goddess.
The smart move here is an S3. It'll time out better. You can S3, the next round you can S2, and then when the debuffs hit, her S3 is ready. But I got the timing backwards. I did her S2 first, and that puts my tuning a little bit off. The AoE hit procs Inferno Kawazu, making his Vigor buff activate. While he has a Vigor buff up, it's a 100% chance to strip with his S3, which means there's no RNG you get to remove the counter buff if you have it in time. Fire Kawazu is loaded with defense breaks and burn debuffs himself, so we've got the defense break established. We got a nice blind debuff on there, probably from the Cradle of Life. And you know what? I didn't need the cleanse on Acades after all. Everybody resisted, so RNG is in my corner for a change. Just S1. Now the Vigor buff is gone, but that's okay. Sinful Angelica, S1s, and you can see we are loaded with debuffs. We should not have a problem pushing past the debuff phase. Vigor is up.
I'll save you.
We definitely need to S3 here. I don't know if you've noticed, but Prophetic Candlestick has not procced a single time. 40% chance. Singelica's been hit 3 times, not a single proc. So her S3 is not ready, unfortunately. So you save the S3. Yeah, see what I mean? So we didn't even get the attack break from Sinji. But we're still in good shape. This is the round where we need 3 debuffs. We've only got 1, the defense break. 1 turn burns fall away. We use this S3 and hopefully we get heal block and hopefully Junkyard Dog procs. That would cover everything. We got heal block, no Junkyard Dog proc. So this is what I was saying, where it's nice to have Cradle of Life on Awazu, because you can burn his S1 for extra attacks, just like Spectre Tenebria. So we burn, and there we go. We got the burn proc, the 2-turn burns, and we burn again, and we got another blind proc, so that's perfect. And the AoE attack activates Inferno Kawazu, pushing him up. Sinful Angelica not having her S3 last round worked in our favor. We're able to avoid eating a counter buff by her doing her S3. And then Inferno Kawazu has Vigor. That means this is a guaranteed strip. No RNG. Counter buff is gone.
I won't lose.
Now Acades could attack here, or could have attacked here to save the S3 to cleanse debuffs, but everybody was hurt, so I wanted to rip the S3. Hopefully we get a defense break off of this. And we don't, because resisted, because 15% in PvE, am I right? Dual attack is a skill, not a passive, so the seal doesn't harm Sinful Angelica. More burns. Sure would be nice if we were doing this in defense breaks. I got an attack down with that attack. I decided to stop healing with Acades because the fight's almost over anyway, and I'm just angling for dual attacks and extra hits. Last round. Going to burn this one just because I really want that defense break. Oh my god, 15% again.
Everyone, I'll save you.
Man, Smilegate, at least change it for Ancient Inheritance. 15% in PvE is bad enough. Get rid of it in Ancient Inheritance. It's just so freaking sad to see the word resist pop up every single attack. 5.8 million, up from 4.6. That's another 1.2 million team. So again, another very high scoring team. Not as nice as the 2 million teams we featured earlier, but 1.5 million from a team that's very safe. I mean, even with all the 15% resistances, it was still clean all the way to the end. So this is the next team on the list. First unit on the team is Inos, saying her name right so I don't get demonetized. Next we'll use Amelia, good cleanser and CR pusher and an attack buffer. She's kind of necessary because she's the only attack buffer on the team. We'll use Sigrid as our DPS, and we'll use Kitty Clarissa for dual attacks. Inos you can put on really any artifact you want, so I gave her Warhorn. Celestine would also work if you're worried about healing. Get your Amelia on a healing artifact. Kitty Clarissa, we're putting on a debuff artifact, and Sigrid, I'm just throwing caution to the wind and not putting her on a debuff artifact. I'm going to run her on damage artifact, and I'm counting on the fact that she has so many bleeds in her kits that I'm not going to need additional debuffs. Now, you could also run Luna. If you're going to run Luna, definitely put her on a debuffing artifact, because she does not have nearly the debuff potential as Sigrid. Sigrid is stronger when you are below the 50 to 75% threshold, so she gets extra hits off of her S2 swipe. But
Do your best.
I just wanted to run Sigrid this round.
This is the start.
So we transform Kitty, and we
What's the play?
start our dual attack nonsense. Inos's S3 is an attack buff and a speed buff. You don't have to have Inos's SC done for this to work. Last season I ran pre-Inos SC, I ran this team and it worked just as well. But with her SC you get a few more perks. Now if you're below 75% with the EE or below 50% without the EE, you get an extra swipe out of that. And you can see the extra bleeds. That's where I'm hoping I'm going to get my pass through the phase 6 wipe. So we put barrier up for artificial healing. Kitty's double striking. See, we're going to be fine on number of debuffs. Now her S1 does have a defense break. If you burn it, it's 100%. So we got the defense break. Okay, the hesitation here is I'm thinking about cleansing and attack buffing Sigrid, but we're getting close to the wipe phase, and I want to save that S2 in case I need to push Sigrid up to guarantee my debuffs. So I'm going to sandbag that for one round. Do an additional S1 swipe. Hindsight being 20/20, and S3 probably would have been better there. Inos, hopefully we refresh that defense break. We did. No, we did not. So now we only have an attack break. And oh wait, it's next round. Next round is when we need the 2 debuffs. So I'll continue to S1 with Amelia. I'm going to soul burn to get the defense break. 100% chance. I should have S2'd earlier when I had all the debuffs up. Okay, so here's the big screw up. Don't at me over this. There was no reason for me to use Kitty Clarissa's S2. I thought, oh, I'll get the buff, the heal block up, and that way I can pass through the next phase. That was my only strip. And because I did that, it's like, yeah, I've got my, well, one more hit and I got my 3 debuffs, but I'll effectively have my 3 debuffs, but I have no functional way to strip the counterattack buff, and it ruins this run. What would have been a fantastic run, by the way. So there's our attack bound, heal block, bleed.
What's the play here?
So we've got everything we need to pass through into the next phase. You know what? Hindsight being 20/20, if I didn't put the heal block up, I would have gotten wiped there. So I guess it was fine. Because I didn't have Sigrid on a DPS artifact, I actually I would have hosed myself there. I would have, without the heal block, I only had 2 debuffs and I'd be dead. So even though I'm eating counter after counter after counter, every point here is money in the bank. So I guess it worked out. But realistically, you save Kitty Clarissa's S2 so that you can strip this counterattack buff right now. And don't throw caution to the wind like I did. Put your Sigrid on a debuffing artifact. It's just the safer way to play.
Could you give me something useful?
And that counterattack buff is debilitating. I guess I kind of made it all the way to the end, but it was with nobody doing any damage, just a couple of Soul Weavers. 7.2 million, that's up from 5.8 million. That's another 1.4 million team. Between you and me, if I'd played it smarter with a debuff artifact on Sigrid and making sure I use my kitty to strip, that could easily have been a 2 million plus team. And there you go. I am fresh out of provisions. That's 5 teams. I did 7.28 million across 5 attacks. That's roughly 1.46 million per attack, which isn't bad. It would have been closer to 2 million per attack if I hadn't, mishandled a couple of those fights. But that's 15% of this priest's health. If you get 6 other people in the guild to run these teams the same way, you kill the priest with just 6 people or 7 people. So it is very doable. I hope these priest teams help you out. There's not a lot of time left in Ancient Inheritance. You really need to grind this guy down. In the meantime, as it's been a tradition of my other videos on the last day, I will go ahead and roll this gear, and hopefully I get something good out of it. Okay, a mid crit chance roll, that's fine, as long as we avoid health. Minimum speed roll, but at least it's in the right... Ugh, God. Okay, so, it's okay, we forgive 1, right? We can always mod gem that into something else. Okay, 5 more crit chance, that's not bad. Let's finish off strong with a max crit chance or max attack roll. Go, 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 go. Okay, that's 4 more crit chance for a equipment score of 98. And for those who subscribe to the Fribbles system, that's 72 gear score. Not terrible. I'm not entirely sure where it's going to go, but I'll find a place for it. So next, let's move on to this helmet. Helmet's got the same potential as the weapon. We just want to dodge crit or want to dodge health, roll everything else. Okay, 3 speed. It's a minimum speed roll, but we take it. Ugh. Rather low attack score. And kind of a mid crit chance. We're hitting all the right stats. I'm just rolling really lukewarm. Oh, God. And then health. I don't even know if this is worth finishing, but I guess just for the sake of the video, I'll go ahead and finish this off. I hate it when they spread out into every stat and roll low in every stat except the one you don't want. Okay, anything but health. Anything but health. 3 more speed. Very, very mid across the board. But that gives us a 94 equipment score, which works out to a decent but somewhat disappointing for AI gear 69 Fribbles style gear score. So let's try the armor. As long as we dodge health, the armor can't really roll bad. Okay, max crit chance and close to minimum crit damage. 1 off minimum, but we keep going. Oh, good lord. And it was a low roll at that. In fact, I think that's a minimum roll. Well, I don't know. Health, I think it can roll 4 on 88s. Anyway, 4 speed, that's nice. This could be really good if we high roll crit chance or crit damage. And we min roll crit damage. That was a 4. Well, this piece had a lot of potential, and a 96 equipment score. That sets the Fribbles gear score at 71. So usable, but really that had so much potential. Not happy with where it ended. So let's hope this neck rolls even better. As long as we dodge defense, we're good to go. We start out with a solid minimum 3 into crit chance. Hate to see it. A 4 in speed, we take that. Well, popped up to level 9. We also got 5 in crit chance. So we got 4 speed, and then a 4 crit chance and a 5 crit chance. It's not terrible. It's hitting the stats we want it to hit. An attack would be nice. Okay, we got a 6, a max roll in crit chance. Looking good. 21 crit chance as a substat, that's great. It's almost a whole crit set in one substat. Big attack roll. Give me a real big fat attack roll. Or crit chance. I'm not greedy. Hit any of the top 3 stats. Dude! That was another max crit chance roll. We have our first banger. 105 equipment score. This monstrosity has a Fribbles 79 gear score. And if it was on something other than attack set, but you know what? I will find a place for that. Let's roll this ring. Okay, unfortunate roll into health, but at least it was max, and a good solid 4 into speed. 3 into crit chance, that's a minimum. 3 more into speed, okay. I'm not sure where I want this roll to go, either speed or crit damage. A middling crit damage roll, but we take this. 96 equipment score, so Fribbles would call that a 70 gear score. Not sure where I'll use that, but I'm sure it'll find a home. Really, any attack scaling bruiser who wants a little bit of speed. So the boots. The boots start out great. A max crit chance roll and a one-off max crit damage roll. We are cooking with gas. Another 5 into crit chance. That's fantastic. Yo, that's 6 more into crit chance. 23 crit chance on crit set boots. This piece solves problems. Yay! It was only 3 more, but still it was into crit chance. That is 26% crit chance on boots. That's 103 equipment score. Fribbles clocks that in at 77 gear score. Little unfortunate with that last low roll. This could have been closer to 80, but still. We got really nice boots and a really, really nice neck. I think most of these pieces are going to be usable, somewhere. Hopefully they buff attack set and they become usable lots of places. Well, I want to thank everybody for sticking with me and supporting me during Season 6 of Ancient Inheritance. I hope this video series was helpful to you, helped you achieve your goals, and was at least a little bit entertaining. I know not the most riveting content, but useful at very least. Again, my socials are linked in the description of the video. Come visit me in Discord, and if you have any questions, you can hit me up there. Or you can ask them in the comments section. And as always, like and subscribe, and for my friends in the USA, have a great holiday weekend.